Okay, let's dive straight in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the sources for Isaiah chapter 40.
It's quite a chapter. Starts with comfort, builds up to these huge ideas about God, and then circles back.
Exactly. It really takes you on a journey. And it begins with this really striking message of comfort right there in verses 1 and 2.
It does. The source hits you immediately. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Just repeated like that.
Yeah, that repetition feels important.
Yeah.
And it's directed at Jerusalem, acknowledging, a tough time.
Right. The source says her hard service has been completed, her sin has been paid for. That's key context.
And then there's that phrase, received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. It can sound, well, a bit stark.
It can,
Yeah.
but looking at the source, the insight seems less about the amount of punishment and more about its absolute finality, like the debt is overpaid, totally cleared.
Okay, so the comfort arrives after everything is settled. There's a definite turning point. Going back to the hardship.
Precisely. It signifies a complete end to that period. Justice served, now comes grace. A clear path forward.
Okay, so from that point of completion and comfort, the source shifts. Verses 3 to 5. Preparing the way.
Mm-hmm. A voice of one calling, that iconic phrase.
And the call is huge. In the desert, prepare the way for the Lord. A highway, it says, in the wilderness.
Yeah, just imagine that. Building a superhighway for God through desolate land. The imagery is powerful.
And it's not just paving. It's like total transformation, valleys lifted, mountains flattened.
Right. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. It's about removing every single obstacle, making it perfectly smooth.
Suggests the arrival is, well, a really big deal. Needs major prep work.
Absolutely. And the source tells us why. The glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all mankind together will see it. It's a public, universal event.
Not hidden. And the certainty comes from that final line.
For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. That seals it. It's the divine decree.
Which then leads into verses 6 to 8, a section that really makes you pause.
Yeah, it does. After all that buildup about divine arrival, suddenly another voice cries out with this stark comparison.
All men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. Beautiful, but temporary.
Exactly. The source just lays it out. The grass withers and the flowers fall. Surely the people are grass. No sugarcoating human fragility.
Our lives, our achievements, they fade. That's the message.
It is. But then immediately, the contrast, that anchor point. But the word of our God stands forever.
So why focus on how temporary we are right then? What's the insight?
Well, it provides perspective, doesn't it? Compared to God's eternal plan and power, our stuff is fleeting. So relying on human strength or glory, it's like building on sand. But God's word, his promises, that endures. That's the solid ground the source points to.
Right. When everything else feels shaky, that's the constant.
Yeah. It's a grounding truth, ironically placed right after the talk of leveling mountains.
Okay, so shifting focus again. Verses 9 to 11. Now we're talking about the announcement itself, God actually arriving.
Yes, you have these messengers bringing good tidings to Zion, to Jerusalem.
And they're told to be bold,
Yep.
right? Go up on a high mountain, lift up your voice with a shout. Do not be afraid.
Definitely not a quiet announcement. It's a loud, fearless proclamation. And the core message is just so direct. Here is your God.
Boom. Presence declared. And how does this God arrive?
Well, the source says, see, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and his arm rules for him. So authority, action, power.
Okay, power and rule. It also mentions reward and recompense coming with him. Consequences.
Suggesting judgment or blessing, based on what's due, seems fitting for a sovereign ruler.
But then, right after that image of power and sovereignty, the source just completely pivots. It gives this incredibly gentle image.
It really does. It's quite the shift. Suddenly, it's pastoral. He tends his flock like a shepherd.
He gathers the lambs in his arms,
Yeah.
carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. It's so tender.
And that's a key insight, I think. The source presents this amazing balance. The same God with immense power.
Is also intimately caring, looking after the most vulnerable.
Exactly. It challenges any idea that great power has to be distant or harsh. Strength used for care.
That's a really compelling picture. Now, the next section, verses 12 through 26, this is a major part of the chapter.
Oh, yeah. The source really digs in here. It's all about establishing God's, his absolute incomparability.
It does it with these rhetorical questions, right? Designed to just stop any comparison in its tracks.
Totally. It starts with sheer physical scale in verse 12. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand?
I mean, just try to picture that. Holding oceans in your palm? Or measuring the heavens with your handspan?
It's mind-boggling. And it goes on. Held the dust of the earth in a basket, weighed the mountains on the scales.
Everyday actions, like weighing things, but applied to mountains and planets. Effortless control over creation.
And it's not just physical power. The questions immediately shift to knowledge, to wisdom.
Right. Who has understood the mind of the Lord, or instructed him as his counselor?
Or, whom did the Lord consult? Who taught him knowledge? And the answer is just silence. Nobody.
He doesn't need advisors. He is the source of understanding. That's the point.
Precisely. And that perspective then reframes how we see human power, like nations.
Yeah, the source is pretty blunt there. Nations are like a drop in a bucket.
Regarded as dust on the scales. Think about that. All the world powers, economies, armies, just dust. Insignificant from that vantage point.
It even mentions Lebanon. Not enough wood or animals there for a worthy sacrifice.
Right, even the grandest human offerings fall short. Nothing in creation can match God's scale or value.
And then the really direct statement, before him all the nations are as nothing, worthless and less than nothing. That's quite humbling.
It leads straight to the core challenge in verse 18. To whom, then, will you compare God? What image will you compare him to?
And then it immediately contrasts that question with idols, human attempts to make a comparison.
Yeah, and the source gives you surprisingly detailed descriptions of making idols. The craftsman, the goldsmith, the silver chains.
Even the poor person choosing wood that won't rot, needing a skilled person just to make sure the idol doesn't fall over.
And there's the insight, right? All that human effort to create something fragile, static, that can't even stand up on its own.
Compared to the God who measures oceans and holds stars.
Exactly. It highlights the complete absurdity of the comparison. The living creator versus a handmade object.
The source then kind of calls the listener back. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Like, this should be fundamental.
Understood. Since the earth was founded, these are foundational truths embedded in reality.
And the description continues. God enthroned above the circle of the earth, people like grasshoppers below.
It's scale difference again, and his control stretches out the heavens like a canopy, like a tent to live in. Total command.
And this power isn't just over nature. It applies to human rulers, too.
Yes, he brings princes to naught, reduces rulers to nothing. They barely get established before they wither and blow away like chaff.
Even the most powerful are temporary before him.
Which leads to God repeating the challenge directly in verse 25. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal? Says the Holy One.
It really forces you to think, where could you possibly find an equal?
And the answer is pointed towards creation itself. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these?
The evidence is right there, inescapable.
And that detail about the stars.
Yeah.
Wow, he brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name.
Think about that. Billions upon billions of stars, and he knows each one individually, by name.
Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. It connects that vast cosmic power with incredibly personal knowledge.
Yeah, it really brings together the scale and the intimacy we saw earlier with the shepherd image.
It absolutely does. So, okay, after all that, this mind-expanding view of God, the final section brings it right back down to earth, verses 27 to 31.
Back to the human experience. Specifically, feeling weary, feeling overlooked.
Right. The source anticipates that feeling, maybe especially after contemplating such vastness. It voices the complaint. Why do you say, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God?
That feeling of being lost in the crowd, maybe? Or just forgotten? It's a very human feeling.
It is. But the answer immediately points back to everything we've just heard about God's nature. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Remember who we're talking about.
He's the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth.
And crucially, unlike us, he will not grow tired or weary. His understanding, infinite. No one can fathom it.
So he doesn't get worn out by our problems. He doesn't fail to understand them.
Exactly. He has limitless energy, limitless wisdom. And because he is limitless,
he can supply our needs when we hit our limits. He gives strength to the weary.
And increases the power of the weak. And the source acknowledges everyone needs this, even the young.
Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Yeah, human strength always has a limit. We all get tired.
Which makes the final promise so powerful. For those who hope, who trust in this God.
Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. That's the core promise.
And the imagery used for that renewal, it's incredible. They will soar on wings like eagles.
They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. It's not just coping, it's supernatural vitality.
Drawing strength not from ourselves, but from this inexhaustible, incomparable God.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into Isaiah 40, we've really covered a lot of ground. From that initial specific comfort.
Through the radical preparation, the contrast between fleeting humanity and the eternal word.
Seeing that balance of immense power and shepherd-like tenderness.
Grappling with God's sheer incomparability, against which nations and idols are just nothing.
And ending with this profound hope for strength when we feel utterly weary.
The sources really challenge how you see things, your own struggles, world events, your own limits. It presents this eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing God who is also incredibly close and caring.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. Considering that immense scale, God measuring oceans, naming stars, seeing nations as dust, and yet offering renewed strength specifically to those who hope in him. What does that do to your perspective?
How does that shift how you view your own challenges, your fatigue, maybe even your own sense of significance or insignificance in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, it's definitely a perspective shift worth sitting with.